Welcome to session two, the AI Diligence Stack, how to underwrite data, models, governance, and terms. In session one, we established the New Deal thesis. Corporate development is no longer just buying companies or products and revenue streams. Increasingly, it is buying data and workflows, models, decision rights, governance maturity, and adoption pathways. Now we move from thesis to evidence because in AI era deals, management story is not enough. The phrase AI enabled is not evidence. A product demonstration is not evidence. A roadmap is also not evidence. A revenue multiple is not evidence. The diligence question is, can the target's AI story survive verification? That is what session two is about. The core question is this: how should corporate development, diligence, and structure an AI enabled transaction so the premium is defensible? I think we frame it this way: traditional diligence may be insufficient. With the new mandate, including 9 parallel work streams, a unified AI risk register, valuation under AI, and AI specific deal terms. Let's dive in. Diligence is no longer just risk mitigation. Traditional diligence asks important questions. Are the financials accurate? Are the contracts enforceable? Are customers stable? Are there tax issues? Are there legal liabilities? Is the technology stack sound? Is the market attractive? All of that, all of it still matters. But AI adds a second layer. The question is not only can we buy this safely, it's also can we operate this profitably? Can we govern it responsibly? And can we scale it without destroying the value that we paid for? That is the new diligence standard. AI diligence is not narrative acceptance, it's verification. It must verify the asset, the system, and also the path to value. The asset is the data, the model, the product, the talent, or the workflow. The system is the architecture, the governance, the vendors, infrastructure, and controls. And the path to value is the integration model, the adoption plan, the commercial logic, and the value capture cadence. If diligence only verifies the asset but not the system, the buyer may inherit fragility. If diligence verifies the system but not the path to value, the buyer may overpay for potential. And if diligence verifies the path to value but not the data and rights underneath it, the buyer may inherit an impaired asset. And that is why the diligence stack has to expand. Let's walk through the 9 work streams. The purpose here is not to turn every corporate development leader into an AI engineer. The purpose is to give deal teams a structured way to know what must be verified, who must verify it, and how the results should affect price, terms, and integration. Workstream one, data diligence. What data does the target actually control? Is the data usable? Is the data legally usable? Is the data clean? Is the data complete? Is it fresh? Is the data traceable? Is it interoperable? And can it support AI training, inference, analytics, personalization, automation, or decisioning? This is the most important work stream because AI value very often begins with data. But many buyers make the mistake of treating data volume as data value. I think that's very dangerous. A large data estate can be commercially weak if the data is fragmented or stale or poorly labeled or full of quality issues or even legally restricted. The key diligence questions are this: where did the data come from? Who owns the data? What rights attach to it? Can it be used for model training? And can it be used after there is a change of control? Does customer consent permit the intended use? Does the target have lineage documentation? Is the data connected to workflows and economic decisions? And so the red flags are equally clear: no lineage, no clear rights, pre AI customer contracts that do not address model training, or perhaps there's a heavy reliance on scrapped or externally sourced data. Single vendor data dependency, sensitive personal data with weak governance, data that exists but cannot be integrated. So the practical takeaway is this: data is a deal asset only when it is rights cleared, governed, interoperable, and economically actionable. And then there's work stream two: AI and machine learning capability diligence. The second, this second work stream asks the following: what AI does the target actually have? Is it proprietary? Is it production grade? Is it measurable? Is it repeatable? Is it scalable? Does it perform outside the demo environment? Many targets will describe themselves as AI native or AI enabled. And, the diligence team needs to separate four categories. First, true proprietary AI capability. Second, domain specific AI built on a proprietary data. Third, AI enabled workflow tooling. Fourth, a thin wrapper around a third party foundation model. Those categories absolutely should not command the same valuation premium. And so the key questions are this: what models are in production? Who owns those models? What data were they trained or tuned on? How is performance measured? Are evaluations documented? Is there model monitoring? Is there version control? Can the model be retrained? What happens if the foundation model provider changes pricing, terms, or even access? A major red flag is when the target's AI depends almost exclusively on a single external model provider with no defensible data layer, no tuning, no evaluation framework, and no meaningful switching plan. That is not a durable AI mode. That is an absolute vendor dependency. Work stream three: AI governance and responsible AI diligence. Uh, Governance is often misunderstood. Some executives hear governance and they think bureaucracy. I think that's the absolute wrong frame. In AI era deals, governance affects deployability, customer trust, regulatory exposure, and valuation. A target with weak governance may still close, but the buyer may discover after close that the AI cannot be deployed in certain jurisdictions, or can't be used for certain customer decisions, or can't pass an internal model risk review, or can't satisfy enterprise customer requirements. So then there are three key questions. Does the target have an AI governance policy? Is there a model inventory? Is there an AI use register? Are models risk classified? Are there audit trails? Are there human oversight controls? Are bias and fairness and explainability tested where relevant? Has the target mapped its ecosystem to applicable regulatory obligations? Who owns the AI risk? And then there are red flags as well on this work stream. No AI owner, for example. No model inventory. No audit trail. No bias or fairness testing. No documented approval process. No regulatory readiness assessment. AI used in consequential decisions without governance. So here are some takeaways. Governance is not compliance theater. Governance is a value accelerator when it allows safe scaling. Workstream four: infrastructure and compute diligence. This is where the financial model often gets surprised. AI can create attractive revenue growth, but compute costs can compress those margins. A target may show strong customer demand, but if every incremental customer creates high inference costs, the economics may not scale like traditional software as a service. So here are some key questions. What cloud commitments exist? What GPU or compute access does the company depend on? What is the cost per inference? What is the cost per training or retraining cycle? How does compute costs scale with usage? Are there minimum cloud spend commitments? Are there change of control provisions? Um, can the buyer migrate the workload? What latency or uptime commitments exist? And here are some red flags that we should be aware of. Compute costs that rise faster than revenue, for example. Cloud commitments that are not disclosed clearly. Single provider infrastructure dependency, that's huge. No understanding of unit economics, no cost monitoring by product or customer segment, and no migration plan. So here's the takeaway from this work stream. AI gross margin is not automatically software gross margin. The deal model must stress test compute economics. Then we have work stream 5, AI cybersecurity diligence. Traditional cybersecurity diligence remains necessary, but AI introduces new attack surfaces. There is prompt injection, model extraction, training data leakage, unauthorized use of AI tools, sensitive data entering external models, model supply chain risk, um, agentic systems with excessive permissions. So here are some key questions. Has the target threat modeled its AI systems? Has it tested for prompt injection? Are AI tools connected to internal systems with least privilege access? Are model inputs and outputs logged? Are there controls around shadow AI? Can employees upload customer data into public tools? Are model artifacts verified? Is there an incident response process for AI specific failures? And here are some red flags we should be aware of as well. Customer facing AI with no adversarial training, large language models connected to internal tools with excessive permissions, uh, no shadow AI controls, no logging, no model supply chain review, no AI security ownership. So here is the takeaway for this work stream. AI security is not just cybersecurity with a new label. It is a distinct risk surface that can create legal, operational, customer, and reputational exposure. Then we have work stream 6, IP and legal due diligence, or legal diligence rather. This is one of the most dangerous areas because the buyer may inherit rights problems that are difficult to fix after close. So the key questions are this: who owns the model? Who owns the weights? Who owns the fine tuned version? Who owns the outputs? What training data was used? Was copyrighted or licensed content used? Were customer data rights sufficient? Are Are open source components properly licensed? Do vendor contracts give third parties rights to use the target's data? Are AI outputs indemnified to customers? And here are some red flags as well that we should be aware of. No training data rights review, no chain of title for AI assets, raw third party rights to use customer or target data, open source license contamination, uncapped AI output indemnities, pre 2022 contracts that never contemplated AI use. So here's a takeaway that we should be aware of. AI IP diligence is not just about patents or code ownership. It is about whether the target's AI asset can legally survive the buyer's intended use. The seventh work stream is talent. In AI deals, the value may sit disproportionately in a small number of people. A model may be documented poorly. The pipeline may be understood by only two engineers. The product roadmap may depend only on the founder. Uh, the customer credibility may depend on a technical leader. So, here are some key questions. Who are the essential people? What do they know? And when did they know it? Will they stay? What is their compensation? What equity vests at close? What cultural conditions do they need to remain productive? That's key. How portable is their knowledge? What happens if the head of AI leaves? Can the acquirer retain them without crushing their autonomy? And here are some red flags that we should be aware of in the seventh work stream. More than half the AI knowledge concentrated in one or two people. Equity cliff at close. Perhaps there's no retention package. There are recent unexplained talent departures, no succession planning. Perhaps there's no documentation, a poor cultural fit with the acquirer. So here's a takeaway to be aware of. Talent is not a soft issue. In AI deals, talent is part of the asset base. The eighth work stream is customer and commercial diligence. This asks whether the AI capability is actually producing customer value. And here are some key questions to be aware of. Do customers use the AI features? How often do they use them? Which customer segments adopt them? Uh, what percentage of ARR depends on AI functionality? Are AI features bundled but unused? Do contracts address AI outputs? Who owns the outputs? What performance claims has the target made? Are there AI specific SLAs? Are customers comfortable with the target's AI practices? And frankly, here are some red flags. AI functionality is heavily marketed but slightly used. Customers do not understand how AI is being used. Contracts do not address AI outputs or data use. Published performance claims exceed real world performance. Customer data is being used in ways that the contract doesn't support. So here's a takeaway. AI value is not proven by feature availability. It is proven by adoption and trust and measurable customer impact. That's very key. So the ninth work stream is third party and vendor diligence. Most AI enabled companies rely on external providers, foundation models, cloud providers, data vendors, annotation vendors, vector databases, machine learning ops platforms, security tools, workflow platforms. That is not inherently bad, but the buyer must understand dependency. The key questions are the following. Which vendors are mission critical? What happens if one reprices? What happens if one terminates access? Can the target switch providers? How long would migration take? Do vendors have rights to customer data? Are there change of control clauses? Are annotation or data vendors handling sensitive information? And here are some red flags to be aware of in this ninth work stream. Single foundation model dependency, no substitution plan. Uh, the provider can use target data for service improvement. Vendor contracts do not survive change of control. Critical AI vendor is financially fragile. There is not a supply chain map. So here's a takeaway to be aware of. A target's AI system may look proprietary while the economics and operating capability actually depend on outside parties. Corporate development has to underwrite that dependency. The nine work streams should not produce nine separate memos that sit in separate folders. They really should feed one unified AI risk register. And that risk register should include quite a few items, actually: the risk description, the workstream owner, the evidence reviewed, the severity, the likelihood, the valuation impact, the deal term, the deal term implication, actually, the integration implication, the walk reg trigger, the post close owner. And that last field is important, the post close owner, because diligence is not finished when the memo is written. Diligence should become the integration roadmap, because if data lineage is weak, the integration plan needs a data remediation work stream. And if the talent risk is high, then the deal structure needs retention mechanics. If compute economics are fragile, the valuation model needs a margin stress case. If governance is immature, the buyer needs a day one governance plan. If vendor dependency is high, the buyer needs a substitution or a negotiation strategy. Because this is the point, really. AI diligence is only useful if it changes decisions. It should change price. It should change terms. It should change closing conditions. It should also change the integration plan. It should change day one priorities. It should change the value capture dashboard. Otherwise, it's just intellectual decoration and posturing. Let's go deeper on data, because data is often the hidden deal thesis. Many acquisitions, partnerships, joint ventures, and even strategic investments are really data transactions in disguise. The buyer may think it is buying customers or revenue, software, or workflow, but the real upside may sit in the data exhaust, customer graph, pricing signals, transaction history, operational telemetry, claims notes, service interactions, or even behavioral patterns. The question is this: the question is whether that data can be turned into economic action. Can it improve pricing? Can it reduce churn? Can it improve underwriting? Can it detect fraud? Can it personalize customer experience? Can it automate servicing? Can it accelerate product development? Can it improve risk selection? Uh, can it create a new product? Can it support a joint venture? Can it become a platform advantage? But data does not monetize itself. Let me say that one more time. Data does not monetize itself. AI does not magically turn messy data into enterprise value. Data has to be made investable. So what does that mean? Data has to be clean, governed, rights cleared, integrated, contextualized, connected to workflows, embedded into decision routines, measured through business outcomes. So when someone says this target has a lot of data, the corporate development answer should be this: show me the economic pathway. What decision will it improve? Who will use it? What model will it power? What workflow will change? What rights do we have? What governance is required? What value can we capture? That is the data as a deal asset mindset. Now, let's move into valuation. AI creates a valuation problem because Traditional multiples often do not capture the real value drivers. Revenue multiples may miss the compounding value of data and model improvement. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization may be irrelevant for high growth AI native businesses. Standard software as a service gross margin assumptions may be too optimistic if inference costs are high. Cost synergy assumptions may be too aggressive if workflow adoption lags. Revenue synergy assumptions may be overstated if the AI is not trusted by customers. So the valuation model needs to adjust. And a useful way to think about this is the following: AI value equals the upside multiplied by evidence discounted by risk. And the upside may be growth, margin expansion, acceleration, new revenue, better retention, better pricing, faster service, or even stronger platform position. But the discount factors, they are material. There's data risk, model risk, adoption risk, governance risk, compute risk, talent risk, vendor dependency, integration costs, regulatory exposure, customer trust. The valuation should not say this is AI and therefore premium. What it definitely should say is what part of the premium is supported by verified capability. A practical valuation bridge would include the following: base business value, strategic control premium, data asset value, model capability premium, platform or network effect premium, AI enabled revenue upside, productivity or margin upside. Then, then subtract or discount for compute cost drag, integration cost, talent retention cost, governance remediation, legal and intellectual property exposure, vendor dependency risk, adoption risk. This is not about making the model more complicated for its own sake. However, it is about making sure the model reflects how value is actually created. Diligence findings should absolutely move into the deal documents. If they do not, then the buyer is learning without protecting itself. In AI era deals, ordinary deal terms just simply may not be enough. Uh, let's walk through some of the major mechanisms. AI specific earnouts. Traditional earnouts often focus on revenue, earnings before taxes, depreciation, amortization, ARR, or customer growth. AI specific earnouts may need to include AI revenue contribution, model performance, latency, accuracy, deployment milestones, compute efficiency, named customer adoption, named engineer adoption, governance milestones, regulatory approval or conformity milestones. The key is this: the key is to avoid vague AI success metrics. The earnout must be measurable, auditable, and tied to the value thesis. Then we think about representations and warranties. AI specific representations and warranties, those should address training data provenance, data rights, customer consent, model ownership, output ownership, open source compliance, foundation model dependencies, regulatory status, model performance claims, AI governance controls, cybersecurity controls, vendor contracts. If the target's AI value depends on these things, then the buyer needs representations around them. And then we think about material adverse change clauses. Material adverse change language may also need AI specific triggers. Examples might include the loss of access to a critical foundation model, a material model performance degradation, major training data litigation, key AI talent departure, regulatory restriction affecting deployment, discovery that training data is not legally usable, cyber incident involving AI systems. A generic material adverse and change clause may not capture these risks cleanly. And then we think about indemnities and escrows. Some AI risk may require specific indemnities. Training data claims, for example, privacy claims, AI output claims, customer indemnity exposure, open source license violations, regulatory fines, unauthorized data use. The buyer should ask whether standard baskets, caps, and survival periods are sufficient. In some cases, they absolutely will not be. And then we think about retention pools. Retention is not a generic HR issue in AI transactions, it is value protection. If the premium depends on a small number of researchers, engineers, founders, or product leaders, then retention must be structured accordingly. So that means that you identify named people, you understand flight risk, you design retention duration around integration friction. You can preserve technical autonomy where needed, but you also align incentives to value capture milestones. Make retention part of the deal architecture, not an afterthought. Now, let's return to governance. I want to emphasize this point because it separates serious AI deal thinking from hype. Governance is not a brake on value. Weak governance is the brake. You see, mature governance can accelerate deployment because customers, regulators, boards, and internal risk teams can trust the system. They can trust the system. In an AI enabled acquisition, governance affects whether the product can be deployed, which jurisdictions it can operate in, whether enterprise customers will approve it, whether the board is comfortable scaling it, and whether the acquirer's risk function will allow it into production, whether employees know how to use it, whether outputs can be explained, whether incidents can be investigated, whether regulators can be satisfied. That is why governance maturity should be part of valuation. A target with strong AI governance may deserve a premium because it can scale safely. On the flip side, a target with weak governance may require a discount because the buyer will have to fund remediation before value capture. So therefore, the diligence team should assess AI inventory, model inventory, risk classification, AI use register, data lineage, human oversight, testing and validation, audit trails, incident response, board reporting, regulatory readiness. And so the governance question is not, do they have a policy? The larger governance question is, can this company prove how consequential AI decisions are made, how they are monitored, how they are escalated, and how they are improved? And that is the standard. Let's close session two. The AI premium is not justified by language. It's justified by evidence. Evidence of data rights, evidence of model performance, evidence of workflow adoption, evidence of governance maturity, evidence of customer value, evidence of scalable economics, evidence that the people who built the capability will stay with the institution, evidence that the vendor dependencies are manageable, evidence that the operating model can capture the value. That is why corporate development after AI must run a broader diligence stack, not to become more bureaucratic, but to become more precise. In session 3, we move from underwriting to value capture, because even strong diligence fails if the operating model cannot absorb the asset. The premium is paid at close, but now we have to earn it. I'm Louis Maverick Adams of the Ether Vector. We'll see you next time.